Hey guys, welcome to Slipping Out episode 5. This time we're going to be taking a look at the evil within. Now this game is obviously pretty big and has a lot to look at, so I've decided to cut this into 3 parts like I did with Resident Evil 4. This being the first, so sit back and enjoy. The first thing I wanted to show you guys is the opening scene and how if we move the camera back we can see how the car door is open. Now I'm guessing this is so there's no clipping issues during the scene with the camera clipping through the door. We can also use this as a good example to see wherever the set position of the camera would normally be during a scene, if a character isn't included in that shot, usually they won't be loaded in.
Is there any...
So one thing my regular viewers will know is I always try and take a closer look at the character models. So in this one our protagonist is Sebastian, and just check out the detail on his eyeballs. I'm not going to talk too much about eyeballs, but Sebastian must have some of the most detailed facial features I've ever seen in a game. Let's take the camera out now and go and explore Crimson City, or what you would think would be Crimson City, but when we take the camera out, there isn't a whole lot to it. In fact, not far from the playing area, most of the ground disappears and we're just left with the floating buildings. But to be honest, that's all there needs to be. It gives a good effect of the city surrounding us from the normal playing area. Quite often on this game we can find objects way outside the maps, and we'll be taking a look at some of those throughout these episodes. Some seem quite random at first, but then we find out later on in the game what they are, like this water texture and some floating dead nurses. I'm sure most of you who've played the game will probably be able to guess where these come into it. Whilst we're outside, one last thing that I wanted to show you guys is just how much detail the developers have put into things that we'd never normally get to see, like the interior of the cop cars. I find it pretty amazing. Remember the floating dead nurses that we found outside the map? Well, here they are. Not too far into chapter 1 we find ourselves hanging upside down in a pretty grim situation, and we can see here normally when the camera is in first person view Sebastian has no head. We've seen this in other games and it's simply so the camera when moving doesn't have any clipping issues, although it would give the player a good view of Sebastian's eyeballs again. Just out of camera shot from the normal view of the player, the sadist then appears to cut down another body, although actually the body spawns in his hand. Now, I'm really sorry about this guys, but unfortunately at this point due to recent changes in the terms and conditions, I cannot show any gore in this video due to content restrictions, which is incredibly frustrating, but I've had a lot of problems with my Outlast videos too, so what I'm going to do is everything that I've had to cut out, I'm just going to put it all in one video, which hopefully won't get restricted and you can enjoy all the blood and guts you can cope with. Now, did you ever wonder what was down this corridor that we cannot normally access? Well, I did too. To be honest, it's not too exciting, but just in case you did want to know, here it is. Remember the water we found outside the map? Well, it's actually part of the sewer section we come across later in the chapter. Oh crap. Alright, coming towards the end of the chapter, if we take a look outside, we can see the sinkhole that opens in the cutscene when we leave the hospital is actually already there. There isn't too much inside, so I'm not going to bother going down, but one thing I do want to show is how 2D textures can be drawn to give an excellent 3D look. I could have quite easily made a full episode out of just the one cutscene at the end of chapter 1, but there are a couple of shots in particular that if we stop time, we can explore and see some off-camera details. For instance, this shot of Crimson City is taken on a totally separate model from the map we play inside, and we'd only get to see it for a couple of seconds, but it's absolutely huge. And the last thing I wanted to take a look at during this scene is the ambulance flying out of the tunnel. It's cool to see there's still some of the detail inside the ambulance, and also if we fly the camera back into the tunnel, we can get it to reload all the way back to the entrance. In chapter 2 we get a glimpse of the hospital all the way across this lake, so let's go and take a look. It is a fully 3D model, albeit not quite as good quality as when we can see it close up, for obvious reasons, but it does still look pretty awesome, being you can barely see it from our position on the map. Here's a quick look out over the village, but if we continue to fly the camera out a long way, and I mean a long way, eventually we can see this little white box over in the distance. In fact, it's so far out the map nearly disappears itself, but when we get there, it's the place where we can find the upgrade chair. Whilst on the subject of items outside the map, one of the stranger things we can sometimes come across are the checkered boxes, and I know a couple of my viewers are developers, so I'm hoping they'll be able to confirm this for me, but I'm sure these are spawn boxes. Basically anything that spawns inside a map, like our character, spawns here first, and then gets sent to the spawn location it needs to be at within the map. So it's the classic blood flowing down a corridor scene, and we took a look at this in Outlast 2, but this slightly differs from Outlast 2 in the way it's been done. At first we can see the blood in the doorway, and this pretty much stays there the whole way through the scene, unlike in Outlast 2 where we got one long wave of blood with nothing behind it. Near the end of the chapter, we fall into this large tunnel, which then turns into the hospital corridor, so I thought it would be cool if we flew the camera down and take a closer look. Before entering the room where it appears there is nothing inside, if we take the camera in, we find there is nothing inside, but by taking the camera out of the map, we can see the two rooms are already loaded up, waiting for us. We can also see the many spikes hidden underneath the map, just in case we get those puzzles wrong. So we save Julie from drowning, but then she and Joseph end up falling down a big hole that appears. If we take the camera down, we can see it's just a black texture at the bottom, and the next part of the map is in a different section within the skybox. I just wanted to give you guys a quick close-up of Laura the creature, because we never normally be able to get this close. Pretty scary stuff, but she kinda to me looks like she's scared herself with that facial expression. Maybe because of the nightmare that she must be living. Okay, coming to the end now guys, the last thing I'm going to show you in this episode is the few moments that we get teleported to where we can see the large brain. We normally only see it for a couple of seconds, so here's a quick pan out of what this place looks like behind the camera. So, pretty cool stuff. I really hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope to catch you in the next episode. I've had tons of requests from viewers of other games they'd like to see, and I will try and take a look at some of them soon, but I don't do this as a full-time job, so it does take a long time for me to make these videos, so please bear with me. But in the meantime, as always, take care guys and girls, and stay slippy.